You're listening to Inside Real Estate with Irv Tremblay on Newstalk 980.
Irv, thanks for holding over the break. Much appreciate it.
I don't have any choice, Dave.
I know. I pretty much locked the door and keep you in here.
I'm locked in here. Where am I going to go?
Just for people just joining us, just before the break, we were talking about kind of what happens over the course of a listing and the typical numbers of showings you should see perhaps in first week to 10 days. You probably should be getting an offer in a week to 10 days. If certain things are right, price, condition, location, so on, competition, and everything else. And there may come a point in a listing when, okay, it's been X amount of days, we haven't had that many showings, or we haven't had an offer, and at that point, it's time to kind of review your starting point, isn't it?
Sure it is.
How's that process? I mean, I'm thinking that's got to be just a little touch and go from time to time. With this time.
Well, how's the process, or how should the process be, would kind of be the question.
Because I can tell you what typically happens, and I can also tell you what should happen. Do you want me to tell you both?
Yeah, let's start with typical,
sure.
and then we'll do it Irv's way, the right way.
Well, I don't know if it's Irv's way, but it is the right way.
What happens in a listing is that I call it the honeymoon stage, where everything's going good, and the agent's got the sign up, and everybody's excited, and the lockbox is on, and you've got these promises, and maybe they're going to schedule an open house, or all kinds of things going on the first couple days. And then we get showings, and maybe you don't get communication, or maybe you do get communication. If you don't get communication, you're wondering where your agent is. If you do get honest communication, sometimes you don't like it.
Because your house isn't selling in that week or 10 days. And if the agent's good and doing the job, they're going to tell you why.
Right.
You got to get rid of that dog because, there's a doggy smell in the house. So, it could be a variety of things. And most agents avoid that. They want to be too nice. They don't want to tell the truth to the seller. They don't. And it's so common that they will avoid this like the plague. They will come up with, well, we're going to do an open house, or we haven't got the right buyer, or the market. The market isn't very
somebody
good.
with a worse smelling dog than yours, so they don't notice when they come in, is that thing?
Exactly. They don't. And so how it should work is that agent, and I really like it I'll go back. What that agent should be doing is telling you the absolute truth on the feedback. And really, in writing, it says on your green agency form that you sign that the agent is bound to tell you everything so you can make an informed decision. So if the teenager's rooms are all messy and the dog's smelly, you're actually by law supposed to tell the seller that so they can make an informed decision, right?
Okay.
So you don't want to avoid that. So what happens is often agents don't do that. And they'll come up with all kinds of ideas. Oh, it's the market, or they won't tell them. What I really like, and that's what I was going to say earlier, is when an agent leaves me a message on the voicemail. Oh, I love that. Because they say, oh, Irv, what are you and that seller thinking about at that price?
Man, that house, it shows bad, and the foundation's crumbling, and the bus rolled by, and there's a million things wrong with it. Your price, you're not even in the ballgame.
What I really like is to be able to forward that message to my seller right on the voicemail. It's very good, rather than coming from me, or if they email me that. It's even better.
And assuming this is consistent with other feedback you've gotten, and not just an agent having a cranky day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can see that consistency, and we'll get to price adjustments and things when you see that consistency. So you want to have that feedback. So the first thing is you should get an offer in 6 to 8 showings. If you don't, there's interest, but not enough interest to write an offer. That probably means your price is slightly high.
Let's talk about the price adjustment. How do you approach a client with that when you need to make that adjustment in price?
You have to have the evidence. And here's where agents go wrong, and here's why they're so afraid, because they're afraid of getting their head ripped off by the seller by phoning them up and saying, the house isn't selling, and I think we ought to drop it $50,000. That doesn't go over very big.
Not so much, no.
Let me tell you that. It doesn't go over very big. Sellers, motivated sellers. And if a seller's motivated, they'll listen to you. If they're not motivated, it doesn't matter what you say. But a motivated seller wants to sell their house. So give them the evidence why the condition is holding it back. And it's not just one cranky agent.
Right.
It's condition, 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 or price for condition, or price for location. What's holding it back? And here's the real work of agents. And here's where sellers are always, they don't understand the real work. And that's the real work of agents, to give you that information so you can make an informed decision. We'll talk about when the offer comes in later shows, but today in price. So if I go to a seller and say, here are the showings. There was 5 showings. 4 of the people went out and bought a competitive house. Here are the houses, and I email those houses to them so they can look. They beat you out. Whether you think your house is a lot better than theirs is irrelevant.
Yep.
The buyer didn't. And here's your competition now, so let's reevaluate this. And so here's your competition now that's changed in the last week or 10 days. Here's what we need to do to beat them out.
Yeah. And the competition can change because, you could be listing a house, you could go through the whole process, you could look at solds and, competition, comparables, everything else, and present a price that is the right price as of that day. And you'd go, hey, look, there's not that much competition in this area, this type of home, this is probably the price. Well, it could be that the next day or within 2 days, all of a sudden you could have 2, 4, 5 homes, all of a sudden competitive homes in that area that all of a sudden you're competing with. And that may mean 10 days down the road that, okay, we need to take another look at this because the market has changed in your area.
You're a smart guy, Dave.
Well, I've been hanging out with you.
Yeah, and that's and agents have to explain that.
Yeah.
Here's the price today.
And here's your competition now, so let's reevaluate this. And so here's your competition now that's changed in the last week or 10 days. Here's what we need to do to beat them out. And I'll give you a great example. I listed a past client of mine moving to Calgary a number of years ago in Albert Park.
Put their house on the market, and we had one competitive house in the area. Within 10 days, we had 4 houses that were almost exactly the same as their house on the street.
Wow.
For sale, and each one of the sellers was highly motivated. So my seller was forced into beating that price because it was all about price and lowering that price.
Well, at that stage, you've got virtually the same location. It's the same block. One would assume all built about the same time.
Sure.
Probably similar condition. Then, okay, factor in square footage and, whatever little odds and ends. It comes down to price.
What's the buyer going to buy? The buyer is going to buy the one that's priced the best.
So you better be priced the best, not the highest in the hopes they're going to write you an offer.
They're typically going to write an offer on the one that's priced the best.
It's an education process, isn't it, for the seller? And all the way through this, and you keep talking about, you have to make sure that they can make an informed decision, which means you're in essence educating them not only on the market immediately, but in general.
Well, we are at the first of the month, so I've sent out a half a dozen month-end reports, and those reports are pretty in-depth reports. Active listings, showings that you've had, how many properties similar to yours have sold in our time period, and most of all, recommendations. If you have an agent that's not recommending you changing something after 30 days, what do you have them for?
Right?
That's their job.
Well, sure.
And they have to be willing to tell you.
And
Sellers only like to adjust the price if they have the proof in writing so they can see it. And smart sellers will only do it when you can prove to them that something has to be changed. Phoning them up and saying, hey, I think we ought to drop 50 or 100 grand, I can tell you it doesn't go over very big.
Talk about in writing. The website, of course, a great resource, www.irvsells.ca. That's irvsells, all one word, .ca, where people can give you a call, Irv, 790-3753, 790-3753. Thanks for being here, man.
you too.
You've been listening to Inside Real Estate with Tremblay from Century 21.